thin retro.
Okay, so this is Bryce's and Bo's pig dissection video. So let's start with the diaphragm. The diaphragm is this right here. This is the diaphragm, and it divides the thoracic and abdominal cavities, and it aids in respiration and respiratory systems and breathing. The liver is this huge. The liver is this huge organ right here, and what this does, it metabolizes many drugs and makes a substance similar to detergent for the for fat digestion, and that substance it makes is called bile. So this is a liver. The gallbladder is this like circular oval shaped thing right here. And what the gallbladder does, this right here is the gallbladder. Can you see? Yeah, that's the gallbladder. And it collects bile, which is sent to the initial portion of the small intestine, which is the duodenum, via the cystic and common bile ducts. So the stomach, moving on to the stomach is this huge sac right here. This is the stomach, and that's where the food goes into, and it is responsible for storing food and prepares it for digestion as well. This is the stomach. The spleen is this kind of pointy looking, or not this, like this right here. This is the spleen, and what the spleen does is it is involved with maturation and processing of immune cells that protect the body. So will you turn the page now, Bo? Okay, the duodenum. Moving on to duodenum. The duodenum is the initial segment of the small intestine, which is located immediately after the stomach. So immediately after the stomach. So that means it's like the straight part of the intestine. So this is a duodenum because it's the initial segment of the small intestine. This is the duodenum right here. And what it does, it is a major location right here for food digestion. The esophagus is located at the top of the stomach near the diaphragm. Okay, so the esophagus is right here, this huge tube. You can see it. This is the esophagus. And what that does, it functions in swallowing. So like once you eat, the pancreas is this little, you can't really see it well, but this little organ right here is right here. This is the pancreas. And the pancreas, what it does is it makes digestive enzymes, which are carried by the pancreatic duct to the duodenum. And the duodenum, remember, is the initial segment of the small intestine. So now moving on to mesentery. So mesentery, this is a good example right here. This right here, like this thin sheet of tissue is called mesentery, and what it does is it kind of holds organs together. This is mesentery, and it's like all around the body, inside, of course. The ileum is moving on to the ileum. The ileum is the longest and most distal region of the three parts of the small intestine. So it's the curly part. So this is this is ileum. Because the long and distal region, you can see this is a lot of stuff. So this is the ileum. And what it does, further digestion occurs here in the ileum, and nutrients are absorbed here. Okay, and then the cecum. Okay, this is kind of hard to find, but what it is, it's a blind. Pigs do not have an appendix, but humans do. And it's like directly off of the cecum, but pigs don't have an appendix, so we don't have to worry about that. So now we're moving on to the large intestine, which is also known as the spiral colon. And this big part of the intestine is the large intestine, which is the spiral colon. And what this does, it reabsorbs water from digested food. Okay, so now moving on to the rectum. The rectum is this. It lies toward the lower back region of the pig and is firmly attached to the dorsal wall. So this right here, this long tube that goes down, this is called the rectum. And what it does is indigestible materials are processed here by coliform bacteria, and the remaining water is reabsorbed. The result is feces. The rectum opens to the outside via the anus. So now we're moving on to the kidneys, and the kidneys are these two huge bean-shaped structures right here. You can see it right here. This is a kidney, and this is a kidney, and they the kidneys excrete harmful substances from the blood and from urine and form urine. The adrenal glands, these are kind of hard to see, but they're there. You can right here, this little gland right here.
Let's get it cleaned up.
This is called the adrenal gland right here, and there's one on this side too, right here. This is the adrenal gland. Okay. And then the umbilical arteries. Moving on to the umbilical arteries. The umbilical arteries are these two arteries that come out and from the anus area, or that come out from like the vagina area, and they what they do is they're like they help form the umbilical arteries. These vessels carry blood to the placenta where it picks up nutrients and oxygen. There's one here, and there's one here. Okay, so the urinary bladder is right in between the two arteries. This is the urinary bladder, this big thing right here, and it stores the urine. And the ureters are these two cool-looking tubes, and on either side, and you can see it better on this side, and it's also on the other side. These are the ureters, and what they do is it connects the kidneys to the urinary bladder and enables urine flow. The urethra is the large tube, this tube right here. This is a urethra. And what it does is it exits off the bottom of the urinary bladder and enables urine to flow from the urinary bladder to the urogenital opening. Okay, if you'll turn the page now.
I think we have to clean the plate.
Yeah, but we can. We'll be a little late. It's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So now, moving on to, we have a female pig. So, first, let's look at the ovaries. So ovaries are these two oval-like things at the end. They're on either side of the body, and these are really, they like help with forming a fetus when their fertilization occurs. The uterine horns are the horn-like parts of this intestine-like substance, but it's not an intestine. The actual tube, right, like this tube here, is called the fallopian tube, but it's called the horn parts of it are called the uterine horns. Okay, so now moving on to the uterus. The uterus is down. It's down in here. Sorry, this is pig feces. But the uterus is down in here. It's this this kind of sac. You can see it a little bit right here. This is a uterus, and yeah. Now moving on to the uterus is where the baby is if the pig were to be pregnant. The vagina is, you can see it better down here than if in there. But this tube right here, you see this tube right here? This is the vagina, and it connects to the urogenital sinus. But the urogenital sinus is this common tube that the vagina and urethra both open into, that serves both reproductive and urinary functions in female pigs. It's different from human females, where the vagina and urethra exit the body via separate openings. So the urogenital sinus is like in here farther. Sorry, more pig feces. The urogenital sinus is like in here. You can kind of see it a little bit. This is the uterus. I think this is your urogenital. No, wait. You can't really see it though. The urogenital sinus is in here. Okay. Oh my God, that's. Okay. So, moving on to the neck and thoracic cavity, we have the thymus gland, and the thymus gland is located on the anterior surface of the heart. So this gland, this is a heart right here, but this gland right here is called the thymus gland. And what it does is it contains immune cells which function to protect the body. Now moving on to the pericardium. The pericardium is this like membrane-like substance that is on the heart, and it like kind of protects the heart, and yeah, it's like kind of beneath this, and it's on the heart. And of course, this is the heart. This big organ here is the heart, and what it does is it pumps blood through the entire body. The lungs are these two organs on either side of the heart, and these are what we breathe through, and it's why we breathe. And moving on to the bronchial tubes. The bronchial tubes, here, if you get closer, you can see the bronchial tubes are right here on either side, and it's on this side too. This is a bronchial tube, and this is a bronchial tube. And what it does is it connects the two lungs to the trachea and to each other. And the trachea is up here, and it is this is the trachea right here. And what it does, the trachea, it keeps the it's relatively easy to identify due to the presence of cartilage rings that give it a segmented appearance. These rings keep the thyroid from collapsing as it carries air. Okay, and so the thyroid gland are these two glands. They're on either side of the trachea, and these are the thyroid glands. There's one here, and then there's one here as well. And the thyroid gland is important for regulating metabolism. The larynx, this is the larynx, this huge thing. It's also known as the voice box. This is the larynx right here. And what it does is it like makes it so you can talk. And then the esophagus is kind of beneath the trachea, and it's right here. You can see it. This is the esophagus right here. This is trachea right here. This is the esophagus. Okay. And it functions in swallowing. And see, it's right here. This is the esophagus. And that is it.
Go.
And this is a cecum. It's like a projection off of the small intestine, where the small intestines and large intestines meet. It's kind of like a little dead end finger off of them.